Welcome back to the video lecture on East Asian state leadership in international law. This section will be about the prospect for the leadership in the formation of international norms in East Asia. First, let me touch upon the importance of international law in East Asia. The common narrative of the contemporary East Asia is often described in the context of the political economy of rapid industrialization or from a point of view of the international relations in light of the global balance of the power and the Cold War, the fault line between the primary actors in the region. The dramatic economic growth of East Asia, in particular Japan and Korea, during the latter half of the 20th century, and the Chinese economy, the meteoric rise in this century, has been well documented and researched. East Asia has also been the focus of the much study in relation to geopolitical climates of the Cold War. While economists and political scientists have made great contribution to the study of the region and its modern history, a frequently overlooked area of study is the function and impacts of international law on the relations of the countries in the region. Indeed, the argument that is being made is that the international law has as an importance, if somewhat diluted role, that since it is introduced to the region by the West in the 19th century, up through the period of the Cold War, and has taken as an even more significant role in the post-Cold War era, reflecting the dynamism of the region and prospect for the establishing an order based on international legal principles. The growing importance of international in East Asia that can be attributed in large part to the forces of globalization that has animated the region in the economic, political, and cultural realms. It was not until the end of the Cold War and the flourishing the globalization have the countries in the region engaged each other on common issues of interest, but also have interacted with each other on the basis of the modern principles of the international law. Consequently, regional challenges that lie dormant during the Cold War, such as maritime delimitation and access to ocean resources, including fisheries or the other non-security matters, have gained prominence due to the international law's increasing influence. While geopolitical factors continue to be relevant in understanding interstate relations in the region, international law and its attendant principle have become the basis through which East Asian states engage each other. The increasingly important role of the international law in East Asia cannot be ignored in attempting to paint and complete the picture of the international relations of the region. Though there is a general understanding or general acknowledgement of the great variety of the cultures among East Asian countries and the existing different interests between them, a very strong, albeit rather undefined, the feeling of the familiarity, a mutual understanding, and even coherence and solidarity that persists among them as a result of the numerous mutual cultural, religious contacts and interconnections that have emerged and developed in the course of the centuries. In the present day, these shaped commonalities emanate from a collective history of the domination and dominance from without and within, both in the forms of the downright colonization and semi-colonization as well as the otherwise. This latter experience is, or is at least perceived to be still relevant today, because of its contribution to the prevalent conditions in the region. Although this historical experience is also shaped by other regions like Africa, and manifestation and consequences in East Asia have diverged significantly due to the region's unique cultural foundations. As a result, A distinct approach is warranted to address the specific context of the East Asia. The questions we have in terms of how to promote Asian international law is like that. Is there a so-called the Asian international law that is rhetorically prevalent? Or if so, how is it manifested? This question is continuously asked to us. Upon analyzing the national practice and the process of adopting international law, Asian international law seems to lack empirical validity. In other words, claiming the existence of the distinct Asian international law is not empirically justifiable. Identifying and criticizing inherent issues in international legal practice in Asian countries can be done with relative ease. However, if such identification and criticism are not conceptualized and actualized and subsequently utilized, the critical discourse will continue. Understanding substance and implications of the Asian international law, distinct from the Eurocentric international law, can only be done through the concrete progress in addressing aforementioned inherent challenges. For example, how to promote Asian international law, a couple of questions we have again. The first, if so, should an Asian international law with ambiguous the presence of the South Korea, China, and Japan be advocated? And second, or should such countries play a role in forming normative standards that can overcome the boundaries of Asia? And third, what criteria and direction should be used in interpreting and applying international law? And first, the South Korea, China, and Japan lack awareness of their inability to take an initiative in developing international norms despite their national and geographical scale and status. And fifth, the formation norms require both legality as well as contemporaneous and morality. And is there not a need for reflection of these aspects by Korea and China and Japan? And six, in approaching the current issues faced by Korea and China and Japan, it is not necessary for South Korea, China, and Japan to play a more proactive role in shaping international norms that go beyond the current status of the Asia. Ultimately, for South Korea, China, and Japan to overcome their current limitations and contribute to the formation of international norms that align with their national status, they must foster a mutual understanding. Until the outstanding issues between these countries are first resolved, the collective leadership of South Korea, China, and Japan in shaping international norms will remain elusive. Achieving such leadership necessitates a shift in perception. Effort must be made to engage in dialogue regarding each country's differences and embrace each other. Only through tangible outcomes, such an effort can the countries lead in development the forward-looking international norms to position themselves as influence actors on the global stage. Mere adherence to existing norms as a norm taker does not confer leadership status. It requires coalitions of nations upholding established norms. Contribution to the development of international norms that reflect the fundamental principle of international law, as well as morality and contemporaneous, is a challenging process. However, it is one that must be undertaken. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Thank you.